Okay, so saludos.
Saludos, hermano.
All right, this is Gabe Morales here with Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. And if you like our channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. We've had a lot of good guests on so far, and we have another excellent one here today. I've known this man for many, many years now. He was our newsletter editor when I was president of the International Latino Gang Investigators Association. And we go way back. We've trained together several times, and he's trained for me, and I've trained for him. So, we have mutual respect as far as the gang world. I like to say that, he's expert on the East Coast and really has educated me a lot on the gangs there. They're quite different from my experiences in the West Coast. And so I think I have also assisted him with understanding the West Coast elements.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, today it is my great pleasure to introduce Edwin Santana.
Muchas gracias, hermano. Thank you very
Okay.
much for inviting me in.
All right, chévere. Thank you for being here today. So let's for the viewers, let's tell them a little bit more about yourself. Where were you
Okay.
born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Northern Jersey and grew up in Northern Jersey. Parents came from the island of Puerto Rico, and I was born in a small community that eventually became a city. And during that time, I was very lucky that I had the foundation of a mother and father to steer me in the right way, in the right directions, because, there was always many different types of influences, growing up, especially when the suburbs started getting congested and you started having a lot of individuals moving in and high schools, and the schools started getting packed, and curiosity as a teenager would hit me. My parents were always there to steer me the right way with a chancleta.
Right, right. Right on, brother. Hey, so what made you decide to get into corrections?
It was honestly, I was working full time in a supermarket and doing loss prevention, catching shoplifters. When I say shoplifter, crackheads. And I belonged to a special unit that was being moved around in all different directions in urban cities. And during that time, I got to see the good and the bad, and sometimes the ugly. And when I would go back to the suburban supermarkets, I would talk to the law enforcement officers that were making the arrests, and they would always tell me, so listen, you should take a civil service test. So lo and behold, I take a civil service test and I score decent enough to get a call from the Morris County Sheriff's Office. And during that time, I had spent 11 years with the loss prevention, and I was excited. Just didn't know too much about corrections. Just wanted to get into law enforcement. My father was a part-time per diem officer in the city of Dover, New Jersey, and watching him coming in during the breaks and watching him with the big radio and the macana and his gun and his uniform always fascinated me, and during that time, I always wanted to go into law enforcement or even venture into, when I went to school for art, advertising art. But that didn't pan out. Wasn't fortunate enough to have the money to go to Parsons and schools of visual arts. And I was fortunate enough that, with the direction of the law enforcement officers that I was speaking to, having them guide me and direct me into the civil service, and eventually having enough credentials to get hired through the Morris County Sheriff's Office back in 96.
Wow, that's a long time. Well,
Yeah.
lucky for corrections, you have some graphic art skills. I know we put that to the test there on the newsletter, and you definitely
Yes.
took it to another level. So I really appreciate all the work you've done. Once again for ILGIA and many other groups. I know that can attest to what I'm saying as far as your skills, technical skills, graphic skills, and correction skills, and just skills of life in general. So thank you.
Gracias.
Um, so I know you worked with a lot of gang members. Is there any particular case or cases that still stand out in your mind today to say, where you say to yourself, wow, I can't believe I went through that or experienced that?
Well, wow. I'm saying it now. You have to remember, I grew up in the suburbs in an affluent community, affluent county, northern Jersey, and going into corrections, I started identifying individuals that would call each other hermanos and manitas, my cousins, my brothers, and that sparked my curiosity. And as these group of individuals that were um, calling each other by familiar names of family references were getting involved in altercations throughout the different tiers of the facility, and officers were getting injured, I decided to start talking and just talking and respecting these individuals. And they were opening up books to a world, an underground world that I wasn't even aware of that was occurring in Morris County. Because working in a correctional facility within a county, you need to understand that the individuals that are incarcerated are coming in from the different municipalities of that county. So here I am encountering Asociación Nietas, Latin Kings, pagans, white supremacists, 5%ers. And you need to remember, back in '96, there were no Bloods and no Crips and no Mara Salvatruchas in New Jersey. If you did, there were transients and they were down low. We didn't see that emerge until I would say 2000, 2002 within our county. I'm not talking about the state of New Jersey, but I'm talking about our county. But by then, with the information that I was collecting and passing off to my administration, they said, yes, let's form a gang unit. And with that training of going in and out of the county, throughout the state and other states, learning from various forms of disciplines of law enforcement on how to identify, how to recognize, and how to be proactive when it comes to gangs, including security threat groups or security risk groups or disruptive groups, whatever you want to call them within your state. I was able to, have a big understanding. And this is where it comes around with you. By, I would say 2006, we started having a explosion of gang violence. And I get called in by our local DA's office, the prosecutor's office, and they're like, listen, we're having a lot of gun violence within a specific jurisdiction, and we need you to come in and give us a hand in identifying, because we think that, the individuals that are committing the crimes have been identified through your facility. So, my administration gives me a green light. And one thing I definitely ask is, can I do a run around through the jurisdiction to see what type of gangs you have? Because back then it was very open, very fragrant. You had individuals rocking bandanas, writing graffiti on the walls. And within a day's work, I ended up finding out that we were dealing with West Coast gangs, West Coast Bloods, insane mob gang, neighborhood rolling 20 Bloods. And I was at a loss because at the time, New Jersey or the East Coast was dealing with the United Blood Nation. New York City Bloods, East Coast Bloods, and not West Coast Bloods. So here we are saying we have West Coast Bloods in our jurisdiction. So I got with a couple of cats, and that's where they directed me over to the West Coast. Individuals like yourself, Tony Moreno, Nelson Arriaga, and you guys basically molded me to understand the dynamics of the West Coast. And I was able to understand it and utilize it in the East Coast. And before I knew it, not only was I dealing with West Coast Bloods, but within our jurisdiction, we're dealing with West Coast Crips, Sureños, Mara Salvatrucha, 18th Street. And without the guidance of individuals like yourself and associations that were being formed, like the International Latino Gang Investigator Association, I would have been lost. I remember back in the day, you had that blog. What was that? The MSG blog. Wasn't even AOL back then, and there wasn't even a chat room. We didn't even have a website.
Yeah. It's going way back. Yeah, we kind of started from scratch, didn't we? I mean, before
Absolutely.
any of this, high tech stuff was going, we were networking. We found a way. Whether it was exchanging by mail or telephone calls, the limited at that time, email was still almost brand new. We would communicate, and I always preach networking. I know you're a firm believer in that also.
Yeah, and we were doing it, if you look now, that was an old dinosaur way. It was like, writing a letter and using pigeon mail, but it worked. It worked. You connected by founding ILJA, connected the East Coast to the West, from the North to the South. And I was happy to be a part of that. And I remember you specifically pointing me out and making me the newsletter editor and eventually molding me into the VP position. You groomed me, so not only were you a mentor, a friend, you directed me into understanding the dynamics of the gang culture, whether it's the streets or the politics of it.
Well, you really shine, Papa. I do try to assist people as they have to me. We've all had mentors, and I tried to pass the baton. I always was a believer in that. Unfortunately, some people are in this business, for the wrong reasons, I feel, and
Yes, absolutely.
whether it's for ego or power or money, uh, and it shouldn't be that way. So I always believe that, hey, the main thing is to try to change things as far as young kids in particular joining gangs and the violence that is done to our communities. And as I was telling the speaker before, gangs have always been around. They probably always will be around. So,
Mhm.
but all we can do is try to affect that. And it takes each one of us to, because there's lots of gang members, only a few of us to trying to
Yeah,
counteract
absolutely.
that. So, thank you for your doing your part, in New Jersey, on the East Coast and beyond. So tell us, why did you start GSTEP and what is
GSTEP.
GSTEP?
GSTEP stands for Gang Suppression Through Educational Programs. I got the idea once again through you. You had your own private voice where you can go out and speak your mind with no political boundaries. And at
Gang
one point in
prevention
my career,
services. Yeah, yeah. You were one of my
absolutely.
speakers back several times. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing was, during the time of its creation back in 2004, there was restrictions that were set on me as a law enforcement officer, because in New Jersey, as a correction officer, you can work the streets and you can work the concrete jungle. And I've had the fortune of doing both. But once again, I came from a county that was very affluent, and the G word was very shunned upon. So at one point, I was told to not use the term gang or gang members. There were violent groups and violent individuals. And it got to the point where I was sort of banned from the state of New Jersey, or not, I would say banned from the state of New York, banned from my county. I was allowed to work and I was allowed to speak on gang awareness and identification outside of my county, but in my county, because of politics, a lot of individuals shunned it. So I had a supportive administration where they kept saying, keep going, don't worry about it. We back you up 110%, but just understand this is only temporary. And during that time, I said, you know what? I want to speak in my county. This is where I lay my foundation, where I have my family, and we ended up forming GSTEP. Eventually, the guys that jumped up initially, they sort of drifted apart, but they also jumped in because they knew that the education and the awareness needed to be said and needed to be pushed in the forefront, not just buried in the back of the newspapers and have people ignore it, because now it was getting to the point where it was being perplexed and exploding throughout the different communities. And there came a time in where the Attorney General announced that every single county in the state of New Jersey had a gang presence, not a gang problem, but a gang presence. And that kind of woke individuals up. Now you had the top law enforcement officer saying, yeah, we have gang members in very affluent cities and towns and counties, not just, rural areas. And by him going publicly along with the state police, that opened up the opportunity for me to come back into my county and have my department start pushing awareness programs through our department and through, the civilian end and the law enforcement end. And it was a beautiful thing, and still is. My department's been 110% supportive, whether it was the past sheriff or the current sheriff, Sheriff Gannon. It's been a blessing in disguise to allow me to go work the streets, allow me to go speak throughout the nation and push the message, and that's what it is, education. And that's what GSTEP's all about, is educating.
Very good. Well, once again, man, I know you have made a impact there in New Jersey on the East Coast and beyond. And as you were speaking, I remember also some political situations that were unpleasant. I think we all have gone through those. Whether it be a cop, a prison cop, jail cop, a cop on the street. It's unfortunate that some individuals, whether it be jealousy or power trips, whatever reason, sometimes will try to interfere or make our our lives and work difficult. But I think we persevered. We
Absolutely.
we're still here. They didn't shut
Absolutely.
us up. I think that was their intent, and they're
Absolutely.
not here anymore, and we still are. So
Absolutely.
there it is.
Definitely, I'm in with that, and
Yeah. In
one,
the end, it comes out all right.
and one of the things I learned from you is you're never selfish with your knowledge and your experience, and you shared it. You shared it and that's when I talk about you molding me. You gave me your perception on how things were going to be, and you didn't shun whether I directed myself in a different um, street or avenue, and you were always there to answer questions. And you molded this diamond into the rough to be the Ed Santana that I am today. With 4 weeks left of working, and I retire in 4 weeks, I can proudly say that, if it wasn't for individuals such as yourself, I wouldn't have been having such a great career as a gang specialist. And one thing I got from you is to find those diamonds in the rough and treat them very well and respect them, listen to them, and mold them into the next Gabe Morales, the next Tony Moreno, the next Eddie Torres, the next Edwin Santana. Because sooner or later we're not going to be around, and
Right.
our knowledge, once we pass it off, hopefully that continues on. And like you said, gangs are never going to end, but the knowledge, if you share it the right way, we could possibly take a big dent into the violence that we see within our communities.
Very well put. So, Eddie, if you were a brand new correctional officer, just coming straight out of the academy, brand new fish,
Mm.
working the units, what kind of advice would you have for that young officer today?
First, always remember, with us, our inmates wear brown and we wear blue. Other facilities and inmates wear other different jumpers and officers wear different uniforms. So when I speak to our officers that are coming in as rookies into our facility, always remember it's brown and it's blue. You can't mix both. Inmates is always an inmate, and the officer is always going to be an officer. And at the end, the officer is going to have your back. But always remember, the thing that's going to keep longevity within your career and keep you safe is respect. Be fair, firm, consistent. Respect every single individual. Never hold a grudge against an individual. Once something happens, let it go and start all over again, because it's going to come back. As a correctional officer, as a street cop, you're always going to see these individuals, especially if you work these areas and live in these areas. So you're going to bump into these inmates or these individuals that you put the handcuffs on your local supermarket, in the bank, in the streets. You're going to have your family present. And if you're an individual that's doing some dirty things, it's going to come back at you. And sometimes it might come back at you in front of your family. I've been very fortunate in where, I've had gang members come up to me and they shake my hand. And one of the first things they say is, thank you for treating me with respect. A simple handshake, a simple hello, a simple how you doing? How's it going? How's your family? Means a lot to a lot of individuals, coming from individuals such as yourself and myself that, during the time of their incarceration, we're in power. When we're in the streets, we're equal. But, they respect that. They respect that, you don't become power hungry and you don't abuse that power, and with being fair, firm, and consistent, that's all they want. And, that's all they want, whether it's individuals coming in for a brief stop or individuals going into state prison. They just want to be treated fairly and respectfully.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we both know, some officers that are badge heavy, and abuse their power. But I always tried to stay humble and show respect. And always said, hey, if I just showed them, an ounce of dignity, I usually got a pound of respect back in return. Like you said, that's all they want. They're not there for mistreating. We don't have to like what they did, but they're not there to be used and abused by us. That's not their place or our job to do that, and we have to remain professional at all times.
And, one of the things I ask gang members when I talk to them, I'm like, what did you want to be when you were growing up? And they look at me and they're like, you're not going to believe it, Santana. I said, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And that's everyone growing up starts off in life. And, in the start position of the game of life. And it's just a matter of how the dices are rolled and the cards are thrown at you, so people can stand up and some people, need assistance. And it depends on who picks you up. It could be a positive role model, it could be a negative role model, but every single individual I ask, whether it's a gangbanger, whether it's, in the beginning when they were young, they wanted to be something positive. They didn't want to be the local drug dealer or the gangbanger, the pimp, or being incarcerated. Everybody wanted to be something positive. It's just a matter of the direction of life and how things fall for them.
Right. And I always do believe, that people can change. So I always tell them, that try to give them that hope. Like I said, some of them, when they're ready, they're ready for that talk. And some of them didn't have positive role models. They may have seen those cops, like on TV or whatever, and maybe wanted to be like that when they're little. But a lot of times their role models were negative ones, and sometimes they just made poor choices. But I always let them know, hey, you can make today's a new day. You can make different choices today. You can change. So I always try to, put that hope, plant that seed in their head that, things can be different. So thank you for saying that. Now here's a little bit tougher question, but I know
Okay,
you only got 4 weeks to go, so you can only do so much to you now, right?
Yeah.
You're a politician, knowing what you know today, seeing what's working, not working. What kind of policies or laws would you implement to make the system better?
That's a tough one, but one thing I do definitely see is people tend to fall off track. We take a positive step forward, and then all of a sudden you have a change of administration and leadership, and the direction that seems to be going the right way, that seems to be working, ends up getting lost. Whether it's lack of funding, whether it's a breakdown of units or training. I see my wife; she works in the community, and when the budgets hit and the cities and the schools start taking away from certain budgets, it's the community that hurts. If something's working, try to find and make an effort of continuing on those effective ways, because what ends up happening is you end up losing those programs, you end up losing the policing and the training, and you end up falling behind to the point where you're back to square one. And then you need to find the leadership, to make it happen again. And before you know it, as you're progressing to start up again and revving up, the gang members are already far in front of you, and they're way in front of you, and they're recruiting and they're gang banging and they're selling their dope. And, the community's looking at us and saying, what are you guys doing? And sometimes it's tough, if we don't have the resources, if we don't have the support, whether it's, through clinical work and law enforcement, or the churches or the schools and the counselors. And, it takes a village, to make things work. And I think as a politician, I think certain individuals, they come and they go, and they only think about what I can do within this short period of time, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And then, if I can win this election, I'm going to focus on the election and promising you the world. And sometimes, that promise never comes through, and it's disheartening.
Right. Yeah. Well, we all know, when you promise things and don't deliver, or promise things you can't deliver, that makes it that much harder for people next time to believe in you. So thank you for that. Those words of advice. Maybe some of the politicians are listening. Listen to your experts in that area and trust in them. And just hopefully you're doing the right thing, like I think we're all trying to do here today. So tell us, Hermano, are there any GSTEP trainings coming up, or East Coast Gang Investigators trainings coming up you'd like to tell people about?
Absolutely. Let's start off with the East Coast Gang Investigator Association. I am the New Jersey State President under the ECGIA, President Eddie Torres and Vice President.
Good brother. Good brother.
Eddie's an awesome individual. But as far as ECGI, we're taking a step back in 2021, and we're only co-sponsoring law enforcement events or civilian training events because of the uncertainty of the restrictions, whether it's state or federal. And so we're going to hold back till 2022. But on a personal level with GSTEP, we're running full throttle. we're running full throttle. I have
So what is your
two.
website? Sorry to interrupt. What is your website for people if they want to look those trainings up?
It's www.gstep.org. There's also, you can find me on Twitter. You could also find me on LinkedIn. July 22nd, we have a 1-day back to basic gang 101 for law enforcement. The following day, July 23rd, we have a civilian-based gang training 101 for teachers, resource officers, clinicians, anyone that doesn't fall within the umbrella of law enforcement. Then I'm holding a advanced East Coast gang training in September 9th and 10th, which got filled up in a matter of 3 weeks. So we're looking to see if we could set a new date with new trainings for the 2 days. I'm working in conjunction with the Passaic County Sheriff's Office. They have training locations that they are providing, and it's a beautiful thing. At the same token, I'm blessed to be doing the Oklahoma Gang Investigator Association. They're doing a full virtual gang training coming up. You can find information on them through their website. I'm also doing the Tennessee Gang Investigator Association and the Georgia Gang Investigator Association that are coming up within the months of July and August. Information on those conferences you can find on their association websites.
Very well. Well, that's all great, and it's all great training. Again, it's all about networking, getting the word out there, and trying to improve the problem. I always tell people there's no gang problem, there's gang problems. Thus, it takes multiple solutions. And thank you, Hermano, for being a big part of those solutions. And so, don't forget, if you're ever out here in Hawaii, look us up. I'll give you the homeboy tour, the local.
Absolutely. Tour. Me and the wifey, after I'm done retiring, we're going to go to the Isla de Puerto Rico with the family. But then, who knows? Maybe I'll take you up and we'll go on a double date in Hawaii, with the wifeys.
Yeah, do that. Okay, it was good talking to you, and please be safe, and hope to see you again soon.
Cuídese. God bless you, man. Be safe, okay?
Igualmente. Okay, adios.
Okay, bye.